Hi, I'm Mia Friedman, and welcome to No Filter. Have you ever felt the temperature change around you in a room with no windows? Ever seen something in your peripheral vision that doesn't make sense? Had a song play on the radio that reminded you of someone you've lost? For most people, you might just think of them as random occurrences. But for Debbie Malone, there's signs from people who are no longer here. You see, Debbie Malone is a psychic, a real-life psychic who gets messages from beyond the grave. She speaks to dead people. She saw dead people actually as a child, but found a way to shut them out. However, after experiencing 6 near-death experiences through illness and then a miscarriage in 1992, she began to see the spirit world again. So she decided to put her visions to use. Now Debbie works with the police as a psychic medium, an investigative resource in human form who can be used by police to pick up information that may provide new lines of inquiry in an unsolved crime. She's worked on some very high-profile cases, such as the murder of Kaisha Abrahams, the 6-year-old girl from Sydney's West killed by her mother, the 2014 Rozelle shopfront fire, and the 1979 disappearances of Illawarra teenagers Kay Doherty and Tony Kavanagh. Even if you don't believe in the spirit world, I think you'll still find this conversation with Debbie interesting. Here's Debbie Malone. Do you have to, when you walk into a space, sort of close the doors in your mind so that energies can't infiltrate?
No, I'm just sort of used to that. I'm sort of on all the time. Like as soon as I walked in here, I felt there's ghosts. If you've got ghosts up that other end, then I wondered if your electronics play up a bit in here at night sometimes. So
they do.
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah, because I was showing me. I feel like there's older males that used to be in here. I don't know. Was
Really?
it a warehouse or something before?
I imagine that it was. I'm not sure about the history of the building, but I imagine that it was probably something to do with the rag trade, maybe, where everything was older males, wasn't it?
Yeah, but there's a lot of. I just feel like there was a lot of stuff stored in here, and it's got good energy though. But they was just saying to me about your electronics probably muck up.
I've heard that among the psychic community, Michael Hutchins is quite the regular visitor. Is that something you've heard or something you've experienced?
When he first passed away, I did have him around me. And the thing he kept saying to me, he was elegantly wasted. And I thought it was interesting how he said that, and that was a part of his song. But
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I heard from someone else I know who is psychic, Jessica Adams, that he was well known in the psychic community as being not reconciled with his own death, that he was a very sort of troubled spirit that kept trying to come through to psychics and was a bit of a pest almost.
Yeah, well, sometimes they can be like that because it's like they've got unfinished business and they and I think for him, the message I got from him, he wanted the truth to be told, and he didn't kill himself. But I remember watching that In Excess program that they had. Yeah, I watched that, and when I was watching that, I could feel him around me. And I think from him having that head injury that he had in France, from that point onwards, everything started to spiral out of control.
So it was an accident.
Yeah, definitely.
Was trying to say,
and to be found that way was most embarrassing for him.
So then, if you just chose someone like Paulie Yates or Princess Diana, can you choose who you can connect with? Like, can you go find them in a way? Yeah,
at times. Usually when I'm tuning in, I will be given an item. I can do it through a photograph as well. But, I know a lot of people say to me, what happened to John Bonet? Why didn't, where's Madeleine McCann? So I get lots of that kind of thing as well. But I find with the information, it's no point putting the energy out there if it's not going to go anywhere. It's like if it can be to help people, it's fine.
But wouldn't that help people? With John Bonet and Madeleine McCann?
Yeah, I think so. But in that particular case, I think they've had lots and lots of psychics, and there's no police that are really going to listen to me, because it's overseas. So there's thousands and thousands of missing people. So I try to tune into the ones I know I can help. And if I've got the police on my side to work with, then they can go and investigate it. So I think it's better to put the energy into that. And then each time I tune in, it does affect my health. Like I have a lot of health issues, and part of the way I came to do this is through the near-death experiences.
6 near-death experiences. Can you just tell me what they were?
Yeah, I had one at 3. I had bronchial pneumonia when I was a child. Then I had to have my appendix out at 13. In my late 20s, early 30s, I had to have a lot of operations, had a lot of reproductive issues, and was told I would probably never have children. And luckily I have 3 beautiful kids. And I had a miscarriage, and then sort of...
Was the miscarriage the pivotal point where things changed?
Yeah, definitely. I did have it around me. As a child, I used to see things, but I was frightened. My grandfather died when I was 15, and I used to see him around me all the time. But because him and I were very close, I accepted that. But when I started to see other things, like I used to see things in my room, and my mum just said I had a great imagination, but now I film and photograph spirits. I know that they were spirits. And
so looking back, you can see that it's actually something that you were born with, an ability that you were born with.
Yes, and I think the miscarriage and the near-death experience has just really heightened that awareness.
After you had the miscarriage, who was the first sort of dead person that you saw?
I saw the 2 English backpackers from the backpacker murders, and at the time I didn't think much of it because it was really plastered on the news. So
you just thought you'd absorbed.
That's right. And I thought I'd just seen too much television, heard too much radio, but then I started to see things before they were on the television. So that's when it started to change. And at the time I was working at Fairfax Community Newspapers, and one of the journalists there, I used to tell him what I'd see, and then he said to me, "Why don't we do a story or do something?" He called me Julia, and so he did this story about me, and just to sort of see what would happen. Then they said I needed to pick what demographic for the papers where I wanted, that story to be actually targeted. And I had about 10 newspapers to pick from, and I picked the Macarthur Advertiser, and that just happened to be where Ivan Milat actually lived. And from that point onwards, his girlfriend contacted me.
In real life?
In real life. And that was
I have to always
scary.
check, are we talking about real life or spirit world?
That's right, yeah, real life.
When you say you saw the backpackers, what do you mean? They spoke to you, you could see when you were awake images of what happened?
I couldn't do what I do now. I could only see it through a dream state. So I'd go to sleep and I'd have dreams about it. Or if I meditated, I would see it and I'd hear words. But at the time, I really didn't have any control, and I was still trying to hone my skills in.
How did you do that? How did you learn how to harness your gift?
Well, I tried everything to turn it off, and that didn't work.
Did you? What did you try to? How did you try to turn it off?
Well, I went to like a learning
exorcist?
circle. No, no, I thought it was terrible because you feel like you're going crazy when it first happens. But I was told about a beautiful woman named Patricia McRae, and she had a learning circle. So circles where you sort of learn to meditate and sort of to sort of control things. And it was through her I learnt to do psychometry.
What's psychometry?
So psychometry is I hold pieces of jewellery or a photograph and I can read that, so I don't use cards. So if I've got a missing person or a person I'm just doing a reading for, I'll hold a piece of jewellery and I can see about them from that.
You sort of tap into their spiritual energy.
Yeah, because all of us have energy, and especially metal items, it absorbs our energy. So, a little piece of us is actually, part of that jewellery or our clothing.
Deb, how do I know if there are spirits around me or if the energy's changing?
Well, sometimes the temperature will change around you. It's doing it again now under the table's getting really cold. So you might get a change of frequency. Sometimes you'll see things in your peripheral vision, so something might move in the corner of your eye. You might see symbols, or you might even hear songs pop into your head. Or words that you wouldn't normally say. It might be something that someone would say when they were alive, but that it might pop into your head. Or it could be, call mum. Could be all different things. But definitely the frequency or the energy does shift with things. You might get a breeze when there isn't a window open.
Songs on the radio?
Yeah, definitely. Songs on the radio all the time. They will do a lot to do with that. And it's funny, sometimes a song's an older song that you haven't heard for ages and suddenly there it is and you think about that person.
The spirits around us, are they more likely to be good than bad? Like, are they trying to help us or are they trying to hurt us?
No, they're generally trying to help us. I think if you're in a historical location where there's something awful's happened, then they can hurt you. I did a TV show called Scream Test in 2000 and I got locked in Maitland Jail in the dark in different cells, and they would play a video of the worst things that happened in the cell. Then it all went completely black and you're just stuck there with a video camera. I actually got...
Deb, that sounds horrendous. Why would you do that?
I don't know. I had to test myself.
And so then what happened?
I got attacked in there. I went in one area and it was a female cell, which the producers didn't even know. And this woman had showed me she'd killed a baby, which was hideous. But I came out with scratches all down my face, and then they locked me in another area, and I had strangulation marks on my neck, and they were on there for 18 months. And they'd sort of go down, and as soon as I'd do any spiritual work, it would come back up again. I had to get the courage to go and stay overnight in the jail again, and I'd let go of whatever I brought back with me.
Do you ever get scared?
Oh yeah, I do get scared, and I've had people come after me. I've had them break into my office. It's I've had death threats. It's really quite challenging at times.
That's in the real world, but do you ever get scared by spirits? I mean, obviously putting that horrendous jail experience aside, do you ever get scared of the spirits?
I have, when I've gone on a couple of ghost tours and things, I've had things that have frightened me, and even when I've been working on murder cases, I've had things come into the house. I don't work from home anymore. I have an office, and so when I leave the office, everything stays there.
Are your children psychic?
They are, all of them. The one that's most psychic is the one I was pregnant with at the time of everything happening, and he can channel. He's an artist, and he does incredible paintings, and he just...
How do they harness their gifts?
I think it's just working with it and just going with your gut feelings and, just being open.
So there are a lot of people who are psychics who don't work as psychics or publicly identify as psychics. Is that the case?
Yes, I'm definitely sure of that.
Why, your kids, I assume...
Yeah, I think I just sort of encourage them to go with their gut feeling. If something doesn't feel right, then maybe think about it. And if it still doesn't feel right, then don't do it. But sometimes if something...
Can you give me an example of what that would be?
You might meet somebody and you just feel uncomfortable with them and you don't know why, but there's just a little warning in the back of your head saying just be careful of this person.
Is that someone trying to protect you?
Yeah, definitely.
What are the spirits most likely to stick with us? Relatives?
Relatives. I call them ancestral guardian angels because they're our ancestors. But we do have other spirits who come in different times. I also write angel cards, and they sort of say to me that when we want to work with angels, it might be you need an angel of career, or whether it's an angel of protection or healing or health. I think we get too caught up with knowing what all their names are. If we all think that Archangel Michael's going to be the only one helping us, the poor man's going to be very busy.
It's like, take what you can get.
That's right. I just think if you think of the purpose that you need the protection with and then focus on that positive energy, then, that's usually when it helps.
How do you feel about death?
I'm not frightened to die. And after my near-death experiences, it's especially the one that I had at 33, that was the most amazing experience I've ever had. It was like the movie Contact. I saw that movie about 2 weeks afterwards because I had to have a major operation. I knew I was going to die because I'd made a will the night before because I'd been told by my guides I was going to die. So I was quite prepared that something could happen. And when I had the anaesthetic, I actually told the doctors, and I remember them looking at me as they're putting the needle in my arm saying, and not on my shift kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I was put on a morphine drip, and I didn't know I was allergic to morphine, so I overdosed. So every time the pain got bad, they'd say push the button, and that's when I went. And I ended up...
And what was it like?
It was like it's like going on a roller coaster to start with. Like there was a lot of shaking, a lot of movement. It was like being connected to the night sky. Like I love the night sky now, and I felt like I was an astronaut without a craft. So it was sort of like I went up. Then I went into there was like these black hole kind of things. So you go through these tubes and move really fast, and you come back out to the peaceful side of just being part of the universe again. Then I got to this point where I went through another black hole, but I got sucked really quickly, and then the light was getting, brighter and brighter, and it was quicker and quicker. And I landed in like a meadow. And in that meadow, there was a whole lot of people lined up in front of me. And there was a little privet hedge, which sounds really corny now, but that's what I saw. And when it was my turn to get to the gate, so it was only really low, there was these people there to meet me, and they said, no, you can't come through. And I was really cross because, I hate when people push in front of the deli line or something, and I thought I didn't push in. And they showed me all the people on the other side of the gate. They were all all happy, and they just were really pleased about their experience. And I remember there was people there, I don't remember who they are now, but I just felt love and just so warm and just felt like I was part of everything. And then they said to me I had to turn around. And as I turned around, I looked down, and it was like my husband was down on earth and I was above. And he was saying to the kids, because I was saying, where's mummy, where's mummy? And he said, oh, mummy's not coming back now, mummy's in heaven. And I could see my daughter, who was 1, my other son was 3, and my other son was 7. And they were looking up. Next thing, and I fell back down, and I woke up in the bed with everything attached to me. And the nurses were running around trying to, bring me back.
Wasn't your time?
No, it wasn't.
Robin Bailey.
Yes, Rebecca Sparrow.
It is so good to see you and be back in a studio with you.
Yes, because we are back for season 2 of the Wholehearted Conversations for a Better Life.
Excuse me, award-winning.
Oh, yes, we won an award.
We won a podcast award. We have got a jam-packed, lean forward, you're going to love it, season 2, haven't we?
Yes, talking about things like love languages, which is something that I have spent a fair bit of time on.
I don't even know what they are.
That's okay, I'll tell you.
In
that episode, not now.
Yeah, I can't wait for this one. What do you do, Rob, if your mother is not the mothering type?
What do you mean, like baking stuff and making sure that
Nurturing,
yeah,
kindness, the basics. So join us for the Wholehearted Conversations for a Better Life with me, Rebecca Sparrow.
And me, Robin Bailey. You can subscribe in iTunes or find us in the Mamma Mia podcast app.
So over the years you honed your skills,
Yes.
and then one of the first chapters in your book was about little Keisha Abrahams, the little girl who was 6 years old who was reported missing by her parents in Sydney, and it turned out that they had in fact murdered her.
Good evening. The mother of murdered 6-year-old Keisha Whippet will serve at least 16 years in jail, possibly as much as 22 years, for bashing her daughter to death.
But it was quite some time before that case was solved, I suppose.
Yeah.
At what point did you come into that story?
I had a couple come and see me, and they said that they were wanting to make contact or find out what happened to their niece. And then also at the same time, the police actually contacted me from the dog squad. So I was sort of pulled in from 2 different areas.
Why the dog squad?
Because they were going out searching for her remains.
Okay. So how long after she was reported missing did this happen?
About 12 months afterwards.
So quite some time. How did her relatives find their way to you?
I think they just heard about me and heard that I'd worked on cases, and there was 2 of her aunties came to see me, and one of the husbands, and they were really lovely people, and they were absolutely devastated. They said they had known that things weren't quite right, but they couldn't really do anything about it. But they spent hours and hours on end looking and searching for her on their own terms.
Did they give you something of Keisha's to hold?
When they came to see me, they had a little Dora the Explorer bucket hat, so it's a little hot pink hat with her name written inside, and then a photograph of her when she was in foster care. And the difference of that photograph of what she was like before she passed, you wouldn't think it's the same child.
So my understanding, please correct me, but she was taken from her mother, who ended up, Kirsty Abrahams, who ended up murdering her. She had abused her quite badly already. She'd burnt her with cigarettes, and she was taken from her and put into foster care.
Yep.
And then she wanted to stay in foster care. The foster care parents wanted to keep her, and the courts decided that she should go back with her mother.
Yes.
Which is just devastating and a whole other story. So you had the photo and you had the bucket hat, and what happened next?
In my office, I have a lot of angels, and I have this fairy tree, and then the first thing that happened...
When you say angels, do you mean like...
Yeah, like I have like statues and,
Okay.
like little...
Yep.
Yeah, little things in the office. And
Yep.
and she went straight to the fairy tree and started playing with the fairies.
So you could see her?
Yeah, I could see her as though she was living, and the fairies on the tree were all starting to move, and she was running around, and it was just like seeing a little child just playing and really quite happy. And considering what had happened to her, that was a nice thing to see, that there was still this beautiful life that was there. When I was tuning in, though, she started to show me what had happened to her. She showed me that all her teeth were broken. She didn't like to smile. That they pulled her hair out. That's why she always wore the bucket hat or a hat, because she had, there was lots of bald patches. She showed me that they didn't like her she didn't go to school, and they didn't feed her very well. They'd just feed her chips or tiny teddies or McDonald's. I did a bit of numerology as well, and she was a 5, so 5s are very active people. They get bored easily, and they like lots of attention and love, and she kept coming over to me and wanting to sit with me, and she was showing me the great fun she had when she would go and play at her cousin's house, which were one of the couples that was with me.
So if I was watching you at that time, what did her aunts and uncle, what did they see as they were sitting there watching you seeing this?
Oh, they would just see me sitting like we are now and just talking, and then I would see symbols of things. And the most important thing she showed me was a purple butterfly, and that was a big thing to her. And then they said to me that she did love butterflies and purple was her favourite colour. And then she showed me that after her passing, that the butterflies were a big thing that they'd done for her.
People obviously come to you in really vulnerable times.
They do.
And I assume they pay you, which, of course, why shouldn't you be paid for your services? Is there a process of you having to prove to them that you're legit with things like saying the purple butterfly? Like, do you watch people's cynicism melt away? And what's that experience like for you on that side of the table?
I think that's a good thing to see, that there is life after death, and then also that they are making contact with their loved ones.
Yeah.
I started doing this as a skeptic, so I understand how it is for them as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. You describe yourself as a skeptic. What do you mean when you say that?
I've always sort of thought there was something out there, but until I've actually had my own experiences and gone to the light and to the tunnel and gone to the other side, I'd always sort of hoped there was something there, but then I always wanted proof myself. So I understand how it is for someone, and there are a lot of people that do this kind of work now, and there's good people out there and there's not so great. It's like that in any profession, but I think for me, people might come and they might be so totally sceptical, and they don't believe anything, but they say, "Oh, such and such sent me," or "I felt I had to see you." But by the end of that reading, then they'll say, "How did you know that?" And it's like, I don't even know. It's it's like I'm the telephone. I'm sort of just giving them the messages.
Yeah. Well, obviously I'm fully into it. I've been to see John Edwards at the Entertainment Centre.
He's amazing. Yeah, he's fantastic.
I mean, I just love him.
Yep.
So people say, you guys, you exploit vulnerable people, you do cold readings. All the cases that you work on are usually very high-profile cases where there's lots of information in the media.
Yep.
What do you say?
Well, with all the cases I work on with police, I don't charge at all, and I've been doing it for free all these years. When I work on a case with the police, I ask not to be told what the case is, so I'll be asked to go to the station or go on location with them, and then I will tune in, so I won't know about it. And some of the cases I don't know what they are, and then when I start to see things, especially with the Kay Doherty and Tony Marie Kavanagh case, I had no idea. I was just called in to go to the police station and just given a little necklace to hold.
And what was the background of that case?
There was two young girls. They went missing down in Wollongong. They were supposed to be going to the movies, but they ended up hitchhiking and going, I think, to a party.
It was in the 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in 79.
Cold case.
Yes. And two men picked them up, and then they've been murdered, and it's been trying to find their remains.
Now, the chapter about their case in the book was obviously horrific for you to experience. Do you experience it through the eyes and the emotions of the victim? How does it look to you, and how does it feel to you when you are taken to that crime?
Yeah, I become the victim, so I see it through their eyes. I can feel their pain if they're being raped or they're being stabbed to death or strangled or chased.
How do you process that?
Yeah, it's quite challenging at times. I find that afterwards it's like I let it go. Sometimes I don't always remember a lot of the things that I will bring through. Like when I do a reading, someone might see me 5 years later and say, "Remember when you said that?" I don't remember everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's my mind's way of letting things go. Yeah, because it's their information.
And so people, well, I would say, in that chapter of the book, you go to the place where they kind of think they might be. So if you can get messages from them, if you can see it, if you can experience it, how come you couldn't find the bodies?
That's the most frustrating part about it. Yeah, I find that really difficult because there's areas there that are similar, but it's I could be off. Well, I think I am off the mark because we've had a number of ladies now come forward. Another lady was picked up 2 years prior on the same street near the same corner where the girls were taken. Her and her friend, they were taken down to an area a little bit closer on the beach, very similar vegetation, and she identified them by the identikits that are in the book. I'm trying to get police to do something with it now because the cold case, it's gone to cold case, but the officers who I've worked with are no longer on it.
So it's not a precise art. It's not like your Google Maps and you get coordinates and go, it's right here.
I wish.
So I suppose some people would try to use that as evidence that you're fake.
Of course they would. Yeah, and I think it's, for what I do, I'll be 80 to 85% accurate, and I think it's arrogant to say you're 100% because you never are. Yeah. Some things come in a symbolic way. There was a case that I worked on. The lady's name was Mary Saritas Joyner, and her husband had murdered her, but at that stage we sort of worked it out. But her body was missing. Her girlfriend was coming to my house. He was dropping her off at my house when I worked from home, and I could
hang on.
This lady
so there was a
missing.
man who killed his wife, but he hadn't been charged yet.
No,
that's just what what was suspected.
Yes.
And he now had a girlfriend.
I know, it was her best friend.
Sorry, her best friend.
Yeah, so Mary's best friend,
Yeah.
she was coming to my house for a reading to see if I could pick up anything. But he was dropping her off at my house, which was very frightening. And I kept seeing that I didn't know. At that stage, I was sort of just seeing that she was taken down to Wollongong through the national park. The words were breakdown and in fetal position in the dark.
So you were just being given words?
Yes, I was just seeing bits and pieces. And then so she went back to him and said to him...
The girlfriend, the best friend. Yeah.
Yeah, she went back to him and told him what I said. And he said, she's probably gone down to Wollongong. She's probably in a hotel room in fetal position in the dark. But when they found her body, he had driven the car down through the national park. The car broke down and she was in fetal position in the dark in the boot of the car. And then he ended up having to get the car towed and he dumped it up here in Surrey Hills. So the information was correct, but it was the interpretation of the information. So that's where it's a bit difficult.
Yeah. So back to Kaisha. So are the victims of crimes always wanting to help you solve them?
I think, a lot of them, they want their story to be told. And a lot of the time people, think someone's a runaway, especially with a lot of the younger girls, and they're not a runaway. They've actually been abducted or murdered. And I think that's the hardest part.
So Kaisha wanted you to know who did it to her?
Definitely.
What else did she show you? And was her presence comforting or distressing for you?
It was actually comforting. After I had finished doing the first reading with the family, she actually followed me home. And I woke up in the middle of the night and she was cuddling into me and it was like one of my children had got into bed with me.
You could feel...
Yeah, I could feel her and I could just feel the love, and I thought...
Yeah.
That was really heart-wrenching to think all she needed was love,
She just wanted a mum.
Yeah, and so it makes me nearly cry when we talk about it, because she's just such a beautiful little child, and I think it was so sad.
At what point did the police get involved in... The family came to you to help with Kaisha and to help find out what happened to her and where she was. They obviously had their suspicions.
Yes.
Was it difficult for you to say... Here's who killed her and here's what happened to her? And
very, very hard, because sometimes when I do work on cases, it's better not to tell the family exactly what's happened, because I don't think they need to know the grief. If I'm working with the police, it's different, because they need to know what the perpetrator looks like, what happened. But as family members, I think that's too traumatic for them to have to experience that knowledge. It's better for them, when the police, if they want to tell them, or the coroner's report, that's when it should come out.
How do you decide what to tell the family and what not to?
In Kaisha's case, I would say to them, well, I don't feel she's here anymore. And the way I can describe that is because if they're running around in the room with me, that means they've passed.
Yeah.
But if they're still alive, the energy's different and it's a bit lighter, so I can tell that. But they already knew that she had, passed away, like a little 6-year-old, just to sort of go missing and not be found.
Did they say, we think her mum did it?
Well, they felt that someone in the family had done it.
There's another story in your book which was amazing. Tell me about Chris Noble.
Oh, he's amazing. He's such an amazing man.
I found this chapter one of the most moving in the whole book. Do you want to tell the story about what happened to Chris and how he came into your life?
Yes. Well, Chris had been overseas. He'd been travelling around South America. He'd only been home a couple of weeks, and he was living at Rozelle in an apartment above a convenience store with 2 mates. And the man who owned the convenience store, he actually set some bombs off and he blew the building up and the adjoining building. Chris's 2 mates got out. He didn't get out because there were bars on the windows, and with the explosion it warped the doors, so he couldn't get out because the mates could hear him, but by that time it had sort of twisted and he was trapped.
And he said to them, I'm coming, knowing that he couldn't get out but wanting them to get out.
Yes, and that's the hardest thing about it. And then as he was perishing, he actually sent his mother a text saying, I love you.
Oh my God.
And I didn't know anything about this, and then this lady came to see me. Her name's Elizabeth, and she's just amazing.
That's his mum.
Yes. And she's a very straight down the line sort of lady. She wasn't sure why she'd come, but she said, I just wanted to see what you would see. And the first thing I started to see is the movie P.S. I Love You, P.S. I Love You. And he kept saying it to me over and over. And she started to cry, and I said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you upset. And she said, have a look at this. And she showed me the text. And that's what he'd sent her as he was passing. Then he started to show me about his trip and about different things with his mum. And he loved watches. He had this watch collection, and he was going on about his watch box. And she said, how did you know that? And I said, well, he's showing me. And then he showed me the watches, like a whole lot of watches melting. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. And she said that was the one thing that really upset them, is that everything that he owned was gone, but the watches, they were upset because at least they would have had part of Chris. So all the photographs, everything he had was, it was destroyed.
All his possessions were destroyed in the fire.
But the other side of him was this really cheeky, wonderful, loving side, and he kept showing me his mum was going to be riding a push bike soon, and I said, do you ride bikes? And she said, well, he used to. And then she was going to do a ride for him in his honour. And also the other thing was a wolf. I kept seeing wolves. And my boys, they love wolves. It's one of the, I don't know, it's just something they love. And I was sort of thinking, it's very similar to my sons. And the next thing you know, he showed me gridiron, and he showed me light blue and dark blue. And then she showed me this photograph, and it had Wolfpack on the front of it. And he used to play gridiron for this team. And then he showed me a yellow ribbon, which was, I didn't quite understand what that was, but there was another young lady that was killed just before her wedding, not last year, a couple of years ago, and he went to school with her. So he was showing me that she was with him as well.
Oh, Stephanie Scott.
Yeah, Stephanie Scott, yeah.
Wow. How, you said he also kind of hung out with you for a while.
He did. He still does. Every time I walk past a watch shop.
Really?
There's always, it's like, that's a good watch, wouldn't mind that one.
And you're not interested in watches?
Oh, no, I don't really care about them. And we went to Europe, it was about 2 weeks after I'd done the first reading for his mum, and everywhere we went, there was all these tag signs, advertising everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Tag watches, yeah.
Yeah, well, they're his favourite ones. And then Powderfinger, he comes to me through one of the lines in one of the Powderfinger songs.
Yeah.
And when I was writing the book, I suffer a lot of migraines, and I remember having a break thinking, right, I'm just going to go for a walk down to Cronulla and go down the beach. And my husband said, we'll just go have some lunch. And then that song came on. And it was almost like, okay, Chris, I'm going to do it when I get back. Then he started playing around with my computer, and he kept on making the keys all sort of buzz, and the cursor ran through all these different words, and then it stopped at P.S. I love you, and it's like, okay. So yeah, he's quite an active young man.
How, as his mother, do you not then just become addicted to you? Like, I would want to just spend all my money and all my time just being with you and saying, can you talk to him? Can he talk? What's he saying? How does she manage that, and how do you manage that with the relatives of people that have passed?
If I find that I get messages afterwards, and I feel it's important, I will ring the person, and I'm not going to charge them for that.
Yeah.
I just feel it's my duty that if I can make that contact and that message is really important, they need to know. It's not all about money; it's about helping, And I think being the conduit between.
And why does Chris come to you and not his mum?
Oh, he does come to his mum as well, but I feel sometimes if he can't get through to her, he knows I'll pick up the phone and I'll ring her. And it'll be especially when the book came out, she was having a really bad day, and I sort of rang her and she said, "How did you know?" And I said, "Chris told me."
So is it that there are certain people amongst us like you who are just more open to those messages, and that we've all got those spirit energies around us, but we just either not able to tune into them, or we don't see the signs and miss the messages?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think we are all psychic. If we all went with our gut feelings, we'd rarely be wrong. But there's, sometimes people are more open to things, and it comes through in different ways. You might hear things and you might think, oh, that was just me talking to me kind of thing, or, but it might be you get a message, might even be saying there's a car park up ahead, and then you listen to it and then you go into that car park. Or you might be crossing the road and you kind of think, oh, there's someone over there that's not too nice, I better move away from them, that kind of feeling.
What about miscarriages? Do the energies of our lost babies, do they hang around us?
Yeah, they grow up on the other side, which is amazing.
Do they?
I wouldn't have realised that until having my own experience. And I had my first son, and then 2 years later I had a miscarriage. And people used to say to me, there's this young girl around you, and I sort of didn't realise at that stage. But then I had another son, then I had another daughter, and my daughter would have been 6 years between, like difference in age. And she used to play with her sister when she was little. And she used to talk about her all the time. And then if I'd take photographs of the family, there'd always be lights around my daughter. And she used to see things, and she used to sort of say, can we let her sit at the table with us? And she has her sister's middle name. And it's been interesting just sort of seeing that they do grow up. I don't see her around so much anymore. I used to see her a lot when the kids were younger. But I feel they have to go off and do something else. But they definitely do stay in our family unit, and we will meet them again when we do pass.
That's very comforting, I suppose. With a miscarriage, you don't have memories of them as a person.
No, it's the hardest. I think miscarriages and stillborns are far worse, but either way, it's that preconception of the life you're going to have, and that beautiful being coming into your family. And then when that's taken away, and it's something people don't talk about, And I find I have a lot of people that will come to me and I'll see their children who are miscarried. Sometimes if people have been through IVF, they might have 5 or 6 children that are in the room with me.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you have a view as to why those little souls don't come through?
Yeah, I think sometimes there's something's wrong, or that it may be the wrong timing. I know with my own children, I always, you have this thing in your head when you're younger. You're going to get married. You're going to have 2 kids, have a boy and a girl. And I had a boy, and I would have had a girl, and I wouldn't have had the 2 other beautiful beings I have now. So I think our children pick us out, but everything's for a reason.
Mm. So those energies are still with you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think the thing is too, I saw my grandmother sort of take her with her. So it was because when my daughter was born, things went crazy in my house, and I ended up having to get my friend Patricia to help me because my daughter, who I miscarried, was doing things in the house, and things
causing trouble.
Yeah, she was causing a lot of trouble.
Really? She was jealous?
She was. Yeah, there was things flying off the top of a cupboard, just missing my daughter's head, and a crystal dressing table set flew off again and smashed, and then my friend came to help, and it was just weird. I would never have thought these things could happen unless it happened to myself.
What did you and your friend do?
Well, she just sent her to the light, but brought my grandmother down to take her. And it was weird though, because my daughter had this book, this bear. It was a handmade bear called Brooke Bear, and that's what her sister's name would have been. And my friend Patricia had no idea about what the bear looked like, and she said to me, "I've just seen her go off with your grandmother. She's got this caramel-coloured bear with a big pink bow around its neck." And I went and got it out of the room, and I said, "Is this the bear?" And she said, "Yeah, that's the one." And I thought, how amazing was that?
That she described it.
Yeah.
Have you got skeptics in your life?
Oh, I'm married to one.
What does he think about this?
I think he's opened up to it now. It was very, very difficult when it first happened because I wasn't like this when we got married. And he said to me, just make it go away.
This wasn't in the brochure.
No, it wasn't. And, I meet lots of people who are sceptical, and a lot of police officers I've worked with, and some of them are now my greatest friends. So, and I think too, it's not about me changing people's minds. It's about opening their minds, but everyone has their right of opinion to think what they like.
Mm. Tell me about the police that you work with.
Yeah, I've been so privileged. I've got to meet some amazing officers. I've worked with 2 guys from the dog squad, Roger Mayer, who's now he's now retired, and Dave Cole's another dog squad officer. I've spent many hours in the field with them, and they are fantastic guys.
How did you come to start working with the police? Did you just call them up and say, "Hey guys, I think I might have some information that could be helpful"?
Yeah, that's how it kind of started, and that sort of got me into a bit of trouble. So,
in what way?
Well, when I first started, it was with the backpacker murders, and I started to see information, and then they put me in touch with the head of the task force, and then he sort of wanted to do background checks to see if I had any mental illness and, and what I'd been up to. And then he started calling me a psychic, and I was like, well, I'm not a psychic. I don't even know what they really do. And then in the end, I was assigned 2 officers who I would keep a diary for. And I think that was the best thing that they ever did, was just to get me to write things down. When I wrote it down, it was kind of got it out of my head, and the next bit of information would come. But then when I got in, I was contacted by Ivan Milat's girlfriend. Then that
in real life,
yeah, that was making it quite
when he was in jail. What was she trying to? What was she saying? What was her beef?
Well, she thought that he was innocent, and she wanted assistance to try and get him out. And
she wanted you to somehow help her.
Yeah, and I couldn't.
No,
and it was very hard. And I think, I think for her, she was going through. She seemed like a really lovely lady, but it was just I didn't want to get to that far involved.
Yeah,
and then that was the thing.
So what did you say to her?
I just had to cut contact, and because otherwise I was threatened that they would, I'd have to go to court as a witness, and that was quite a frightening experience back then. But they're working with the officers now. I've got some really lovely ones. I've got ones that have threatened to arrest me because if I was asked to go down with the dog squad to look for someone, and the detective on the case said that if I found the body, that he was going to arrest me because I must have done it if I knew where she was.
Well, that's awkward and unhelpful.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess that's true, though. If you come forward and suddenly know all this stuff about a case, you're suddenly a person of interest.
Yeah.
How do you avoid that? Or do they just know you now?
Yeah, I think I'm sort of tune into the officers before I work on the case. And, I've met some really good ones. And it's just, I don't know, it's a bit hard. I just got to really watch. I've just got to look after me, I suppose.
And they have to suspend any disbelief that they might have.
Yeah, I think so. And see, when I give them the information, I don't really get any feedback if it's right or wrong. It's more when it comes out in a coroner's report. But then some of my information has been put together in a brief for the coroner as well. So they've used it in court.
You've been on a TV show called The One.
Yep.
How was that experience for you? In part, you write in the book it was frustrating.
Yeah, it was dreadful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you ambivalent about going into that, or how was it sort of sold to you?
I was asked to be on Series 1 and to be the judge, and I said no. And then a dear friend of mine talked me around to do the second series, and I learnt a lot about myself, but I'm not a competitive person.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, like put your gifts. So what was the premise of the show?
Yeah, it was testing over 100 psychics around Australia, and then they had 10 of us, and we had to sort of compete against each other. It was like
to try to solve a crime.
Yeah. Oh no, just anything, just all different things. You had to read dogs. You had to do a lot of things. It was a bit like, I would say, Psychic Olympics, because people might be a Reiki master, or they might be a tarot reader. They might be a psychic, or they might be a medium or a clairvoyant. There's all different types of this kind of gift. And it's like trying to put a swimmer up against a runner. You know, they're all gifted, but it's a different kind of gifts. But there was a lot of egos involved, and I found it very challenging. I got bullied, and it was.
And did you find that it was sort of compromising what it is that you do?
Yeah, in some ways. I think I did learn a lot, and I feel the producers, they were really nice, and it sort of pushed my limits, but I don't think I'd ever do anything like that again.
So what's your daily life like now?
Well, I do readings, full time. I'm still writing. I've got a couple of cases that I'm currently working on at the moment as well. Are
there energies that you sometimes just have to clear out of, that have just become annoying and persistent? When do they leave? Yeah,
well, sometimes I had one that came to me when I was in the shower, and that's awful. But
it's a bit rude.
It is. I think if they're that sad to see me naked, it's their bad luck.
It's just like, hey guys, the door's locked.
I think it's because water's a great conductor, so they'll come through, and it's sort of like they're not thinking about that you're in the shower. They think they're just trying to get through to you.
And how do you get rid of them?
Yeah, well, I just sort of ask for them to leave, and sort of say, well, that's I sort of tune out. When in between each reading, I usually break contact. I go and wash my hands and sort of shut that down so that I'm ready to see the next person. And then at the end of the day, showers are my thing. When I have a shower in the morning, that's my white light on. Shower in the night, sort of washing any negativity off, and then white light on again to go to sleep.
Is that something we can all do?
Oh, definitely.
What can you just explain that a little bit more?
Well, it's about protecting your aura, because we all have auras, and you might be standing in the queue beside somebody and you feel like they're touching you, but they're not really. But that's because your auras are actually interconnecting. So what I always do is I imagine a big force field around myself, and I imagine it being white light. Some people might choose to ask their guardian angel to come in. It's whatever way you feel comfortable. But people might call God in. It just depends, but just expanding that energy field, and just surrounding yourself with positive energy. That if you're getting black colours, well, that's probably not a good thing. That's more negative. But I always think of putting white. It's as though I'm standing out under the sunlight and I've just got white all around me.
Deb, thank you so much. It's been so wonderful to meet you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been great to meet you too. It's been really good.
So has it changed your mind listening to Debbie? Look, I used to watch Crossing Over with John Edwards, and I even went and paid to go and see John Edwards at the Entertainment Centre in a big live event when he came to Australia. So I've got an open mind to all that stuff. But it's interesting, after she talked about the spirits that are in the Mamamia offices, and she said, do we sometimes have technical problems at night? Well, when we were recording an episode of our podcast, Tell Me It's Going to Be Okay, Eliza, the producer of this podcast and that podcast, came in very early in the morning because my co-host on that one, Amelia Lester, is in New York. So Liz had to come in super early to hook up the call where we recorded the podcast, and our whole internet was down. And look, maybe that's just the internet being down, but we had a bit of a ooh moment. And at night, yeah, sometimes the internet does go funny in here. And she was right. This office was used for, storage space and manufacturing. And it's pretty funny that there are some male ghosts haunting this. Well, they're sort of benevolent haunting, she seems to say, this office of women. I bet they think we're hilarious. Certainly in their day, there wouldn't have been an office full of women. Thanks for listening to No Filter. You can buy Debbie's book, Clues from Beyond, and my book, Work-Strife Balance, at iBooks at apple.co/Mamamia. And this is where you can also subscribe to all our other shows in one place. One that I would recommend is a new podcast we have if you're interested in the phenomenon that is Donald Trump, the horror show that is Donald Trump. Speaking of horror, it's called Tell Me It's Going to Be Okay. And just recently, I called up a friend of mine, Paul Murray, who was a Donald Trump supporter during the campaign, to check in with him on how he feels about the latest drama around the tweets, around Mika Brzezinski and the facelift, about the video that Trump put out with CNN and him punching someone with a CNN logo in the head, and how Trump actually uses the whole wrestling culture very deliberately with his brand, with his population, with his popularity, and to sort of drive support from his base. It's absolutely a fascinating conversation. So that's Tell Me It's Going to Be Okay. If you want to suggest a guest or just ask me a question, call the pod phone on 02 8999 9386 or flick me an email at podcast@mamamia.com.au. Today's show was produced by Eliza Ratliff for the Mamma Mia Women's Network. The executive producer of podcasts is Monique Bowley, and the head of entertainment is Holly Wainwright. I'm Mia Friedman, and I will see you next week.